Welcome to Yoga for First Responders on Air, where we break down yoga, neuroscience, resilience, and public safety in a manner that's authentic, educational, and most importantly, entertaining and lighthearted. I'm YFFR's founder, Olivia Mead. As a yoga instructor and neuroscience enthusiast, I'm passionate about supporting first responders and anyone looking to improve their overall human performance. Each week, we'll dive into a new topic and often bring on expert guests to share their insights and experiences. But we'll also keep it real and share our own stories and struggles along the way. So whether you're a first responder or seeking to master the science of mental and physical resilience, this podcast is your ultimate guide to triumph over life's challenges with unbreakable strength and unwavering fortitude. By pressing play, your training has begun. Welcome, Dr. Schumann. We are very pleased to have you here and to talk about a very elusive subject matter, elusive to several of us. So the fact that this is your thing is like very impressive to me. First question off the bat, before we even dive into anything else. I have a 2-year-old. Eric and I have a 2-year-old. I am feeling in constant sleep deprivation. Am I taking years off my life because I decided to have children?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
It is a rough patch, and having had children, I've I had them during one of the busiest times of my life, which was residency, and yeah, I was getting by with very little sleep anyway. But it's not going to be forever, and their needs will be abundant in the first 1 to 2 months, and so your sleep will probably be fragmented for most of that time, and then you'll start to return to some sort of semblance of what could be called a routine, and not the stop-start cycle that
Okay.
you maybe experienced before. But it's the way of life of new parents, and that's that's the lay of the land for you right now, but not
That's
forever.
yeah, that makes me feel better because I'm literally, as I'm, getting through these days, I'm like, am I killing myself right now? Because it sure sometimes feels that way. Um, okay, can you tell us a bit like what made studying sleep and improving people's sleep what you wanted to focus on?
Well, I sort of got introduced to it sort of late in college to start to think about it. If you must know what my first entry into it, I was doing some research at the Salk Institute in La Jolla, and we were doing peptides, a study of neuropeptides, which is a fancy word for a small protein, and a lot of these surf cell function, but genetics was another big area of research at the Salk Institute, and there was a very famous researcher who I saw in the cafeteria one day eating a potato. And I just sat down next to him, and I recognized him right away because he had done a couple of guest lectures for some biology classes. So I said, Dr. Crick, you're so famous. You've discovered the structure of the DNA molecule, and you're a Nobel laureate, and the all of molecular cell biology is in our day and age is because of what you did in the 1950s. What you're working into your late 80s. What are you engaged in? What still keeps you going? He goes, oh well, I've been interested in different sleep genes, and promoting the expression of sleep genes, and I've got about 35 of them that I'm studying right now. And I said, there are 35 genes that turn on when you go to sleep? Really? I was astounded. I couldn't believe it. I have to read and learn about this stuff, because everybody knows genes are for hair color and for skin and for body habitus and eye color and all of these other traits. But that there's that many for sleep, I was astounded. I couldn't believe it.
Mhm.
So I started reading about it, and what he was doing, and I had no idea that sleep went on at the level of the DNA in the cell, at the genes.
Hmm.
And so I started learning as much as I could about the genes, because I just thought it was a passive process, or
Hmm.
that it was part of the light dark cycle to set your sleep cycle. I had no idea that this many that genes had this much influence on sleep. And so as I got through my medicine training and ended up going into neurology, there was the opportunity to do a sleep fellowship in addition to studying neurophysiology for the brain and the muscles and the nerves. And so, since we knew so much about waking physiology, we were so behind that sleep physiology study was less than 100 years old. It seemed like a good field to get into. So I
Hmm.
got introduced to it in college, and then pursued it after training, because it was an area of interest to me, and that definitely was a beacon to pull me toward future studies, and how it affected our biology.
So when you say when you found out that there, and again, this is blowing my mind too, because this is the first I'm hearing about these 35 genes. Does this mean that there's a portion of how we sleep that is predetermined because of our genes?
Yes, that there is influence there. And by the way, they've discovered a lot more than 35 since 1990 when I
Oh
was
my
there.
gosh.
So it's a lot. So it's
Wow.
quite a lot. So yeah, it's an incredibly complex and intricate process, but and it's really hard to study at the gene level. And he was just working on how these were expressed and what was influencing the expression. Most of the research done now is still on that, but it's on the physiology of sleep, how the light dark cycle sets sleep, how other homeostatic factors, including the endocrine system of the body, and the amount of time that you are awake,
Hmm.
determines what genes get turned on and what genes get turned off, because that's
Wow.
that is because one's regulated by the light dark cycle, the other isn't really regulated by anything other than how sleepy you are, which is a direct function of how long you stay awake.
Okay. Yeah, Eric and I were just talking about this because again, I'm bringing it back a lot to our toddler, but we've really started to think more about sleep because of her. Also, getting her sleep patterns going, right? And making sure when she was a baby, when she knew it was nighttime and when she knew it was daytime and things like that.
Mhm.
So, Eric and I have both noticed that if we want to get more done as parents, we need to wake up earlier, right? And if we're going to wake up earlier, we probably need to set ourselves up the night before to get sleepier earlier. But if we're waking up earlier, we will get sleepier earlier. So it is this cycle, and it's kind of like, how do you break in there and start it? Now, obviously, one of the many reasons, but a primary reason it's important for us to have you on this podcast is that the predominant amount of our listeners are first responders or those associated with first responders shift work. I mean, do we have any hope here? Or, because I know that what I love about what you're offering, similar to what we do with YFFR, is something kind of elusive, not tangible to the layperson, right? Who's not seeing all of these chemicals in front of them and studying them. It's hard you can train for a marathon, right? Because you can watch your body do it, you can see your body improve, you can feel it's more tangible. But to train, in our case, resiliency, and sleep's part of that, I feel like with your approach, you're doing training. We're gonna do some retraining here to your physiology. So is that possible when you're working a high stress profession where there's interrupted sleep?
Um, it's perfectly reasonable and in human nature to look for patterns for things, to try and look for patterns and see how things fit together. The adaptability of biology makes for a driver of evolution amongst other things. There is adaptability to the environment, and this is seen across all physiologic species. You know, the smaller animals sleep 18 hours a day, and the big elephants sleep less than 4 hours a day, and we're kind of in the middle, between 8 to 9 hours. But it has to do with their physiology and what their metabolisms are. Okay, again, this can be adapted. This is continually be adapted. Where humans run into a lot of the problems is when there are shifts in a very short period of time, and the recovery time is going to be limited. Okay, and
Yeah.
then performance, vigilance, and other things can be compromised.
So the key word I heard you say in there is recovery, right? And I love that you said, and this is another thing I really love about your approach is that I feel like it's really grounded in reality. You know, like this is people have to do shift work. People have to be awake at 2 a.m. because someone's going to have a heart attack at 2 a.m. Like we have to, so adaptability is one of our core values in what we do. So I
Right.
love that, you're saying, yes, there's a adaptability there, but it's also got to be balanced with one's commitment to recovery. And so give me some examples of what you are imagining as someone who can recover in order to replenish themselves, especially in shift work.
Well, in shift work, there are people who or have a predilection for morningness or eveningness, and there are actually questionnaires that can predict, when you would be thriving and what jobs you may even be suited for. There are people
Mm,
who are firemen and nurses who are work best at night, and this is how their genetic constitution and makeup is. Other things can be adapted. It's just when someone who is a morning lark starts to take a job because they, for whatever reason, has to take a job that is a night shift job. Where this is where people end up getting becoming more and more compromised because they just can't adapt. They try and use sleeping pills or other things to try and extend their sleep during the day, but their circadian rhythm is telling them, well, you should be up, so it's going to be very difficult for you to sleep, and it takes several days to weeks to try and get that readapted and reestablished.
mhm,
It depends on factors of the light and dark cycle, but it also it depends on other things that you can do to try and shift your cycle. One of the things that people end up doing is using melatonin. Other people use caffeine and exercise to help shift these sleep periods to try and maximize their efficiency when they know that in this transition they may be sleep compromised. Okay,
mhm, mhm,
and and they have to know and understand what the limitations are. And then if it becomes a situation after, say, a month or so that they can't stay awake during their night shift, or they're falling asleep when they're driving home, or when they get home they can't fall asleep at all, then that if that's going on for a month, then that fits the criteria for shift work, sleep disorder.
mm.
Okay,
So is there
and
something actually called shift work sleep disorder?
yes, it's a circadian
Whoa.
rhythm disorder. Yes, it's for people. It's not only for people who have not jobs in non-traditional 9 to 5 jobs, but it
Mm,
can also be people who have 9 to 5 jobs who are doing a second job and sleeping, and their sleep is shifted because they're working 2 jobs. Okay,
mhm.
even a person that works from 3 to 11 at the hospital could suffer from shift work sleep disorder. It doesn't have to be an overnight type
Sure.
because their sleep wake cycle is still compromised, mostly
Mhm.
from the circadian rhythm side.
Yeah. I actually worked for a year as a graveyard shift cocktail waitress in Las Vegas. So I know firsthand about this because speaking of light and dark cycles, the Vegas casinos keep the lights in a way that you do not know if it's 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. So that's purposeful. But I am not, my rhythm is not to be up at working at night. It was hell. I was reliant. I called myself Judy Garland those days because I was on uppers and downers to try to make it work. It was not great. And I know that about myself now, and I could barely last a year. So, and a lot of, and Eric can attest to this too, a lot of first responders do have second jobs. And they have those second jobs for a variety of reasons we could get into. But one is recovering and going down for sleep is actually when the thoughts arise. And so they actually are avoiding that recovery time, which is just a really dangerous wheel to be on.
Yeah.
Um,
And because of their light exposure, in a situation like yours, you end up having another circadian rhythm, like delayed sleep phase, where you don't really go to bed. You have the sleep cycle of a teenager where you don't get even tired between two until 2 or 4 in the morning, and then you can't get up till 11. Or what happens even more readily than that is you start to develop insomnia. Okay,
yeah.
because of the mismatch between the two systems that are controlling your sleep cycle.
So how does one's sleep cycle change? Like you mentioned, the teenager, going to bed late, sleeping late. That's all normal part of growing and developing?
Yes, yes, it is. They need as 11 to 13 hours of sleep. This is the most sleep deprived group in all of the in all of the population is teenagers. Okay,
Wow.
yeah, they need 11 to 13, and they're probably getting 9 to 10, mostly because they're on their phones at night.
That's
But
true. And
but
school starts at like 7 in the morning, which I don't even want to get up to take my child to school that early.
Yeah, and it even can be tipped in a negative favor with the advent of daylight savings time. That's why
Yeah.
people are advocating a
Yeah.
standardized time, because
Mhm.
it has been associated with other negative health effects, including increased accidents and heart attacks. So
Mm.
it is something that's under debate. The standard time was done in 1919 at the end of World War One to work more production hours for World War One, and then they did a standardized daylight saving time of spring forward and fall back, just to, I guess, give more nighttime daylight hours for the spring and summer, with you having to go get up a little later
Mhm.
and turn back the clock in the fall. But there was a compromise for that. There's only 2 states now that even recognize daylight savings time now. That only have standardized time. Excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Arizona and Hawaii. All the other
Oh,
states are
Hawaii.
still
Yeah.
doing it. But I
Yeah.
think there's a it's hard to get excited about something like that. But most people just want a standard time and not have to go back and forth, I think.
It is rough. I mean, we just had it and we're all trying to get, and I think actually I've been extraordinarily tired these last couple of weeks for a couple of reasons, but I'm sure the daylight savings uh didn't help with that. And yeah,
It has a bigger effect on children even than adults, especially
yeah.
those kids who are riding the bus to school.
Oh God, I know. And I know Arizona doesn't change because we deal with a lot of people in Arizona, and around that time change, we're always on the wrong Zoom call time. Everyone's messed up. Um, so so recently, recently, at least for fire service, shift work, lack of sleep has been labeled as a carcinogen. So, and this is my broader question about things labeled a carcinogen, like smoking or drinking or whatever. Is at what point, like if say, okay, your percentage is going up because you're a firefighter or whatever. Let's say then you leave the job, you retire. When do you get that percentage to go down? Does it ever go down? Because I hear these things, these blanket statements of you're twice as likely to blah, blah, blah and get cancer and this or that. So then it feels like you're doomed. So can you reset yourself?
The longer you have the off-peak time to work, the greater your risk. That seems to be a fairly well accepted, standardized risk factor now. It has higher risk for heart disease. It has higher risk for diabetes, and it has higher risk for mood disorders. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
all of these things are elevated, taking the fact that the physiology changes that are associated with this most likely are immune mediated, and the longer, like just like with any toxin, the longer you're exposed to it, the greater your risk down the road
Mm-hmm.
of having this. This happen to you. It's not absolute, obviously, but it increases your risk. But it also probably has a lot to do with family history and genetics too.
Mm-hmm.
There
Yeah.
are elections to do for that as well. Heart disease is certainly one of those things that we always ask about in sleep, especially if there's early heart disease. And what I mean by early heart disease is that it manifested in your parents when your father was before the age of 55, they had angina or heart disease, or your mother had heart disease before the age of 60, okay, or your
Mm-hmm.
grandparents. So,
Mm-hmm.
so those are strong indicators that you could be at risk. It's something to consider, over the long term. I think we need more long term, population-based studies,
Mm-hmm.
to see what the actual incident is. And if it's cancers and it's immune mediated, is it blood cancers that go up more, are affected the most? Is it epithelial cell cancers like breast cancer, lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, kidney cancer, things like this? These are the things that we should be studying, because
Yeah.
in this 24/7 society, yeah, we should be able to develop screening tools for these patients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree because I also then it takes it out of this like scares that I see so many of these statistics and stuff out on social media that they don't have any there isn't any more information besides this meme with the statistic on it. So it gets very scary, lots of fear-based things. But that's why I like talking about this stuff so we can actually bring it down to practical application and what folks can do about it instead of just be like, well, I can't quit being a firefighter tomorrow, so I need some support and help. Um,
Um,
you
yeah,
know,
that's not an option for a lot of people. So we have to assist them with the screening and getting that evaluated, as well as their sleep if there's a problem.
So tell me how you would evaluate. So, let's say, and we are planning to, spoiler alert, we are planning to work more with you to help our audience and our network with their sleep. So let's say yeah, someone says, okay, yes, screen me, help me. I am a firefighter. Have 15 more years till retirement. I'm not leaving the job. Tell me what I can do to improve.
Yes. Well, my main question would be, what are we should make goals? Okay. Is
Mhm.
your sleep not consolidated? Is it still fragmented? Are you we would take a thorough sleep history, find out from the work wives at the fire station whether they are snoring or stopping breathing, and confirm that with the home, if it's witnessed again in the home.
Mhm.
We have the ability to do home sleep tests to quickly categorize and diagnose this. We can also look at insomnia through a device called Sleep Profiler that you wear for 3 nights, that looks at frontal lobe changes and sleep. and fragmentation. It's kind of a mini map that used to be called actigraphy, where you would wear this device for a week, and it would and the movement that it mapped on a graph showed when you were asleep and when you were awake and what the shifts were from day to day. But we can do a mini profile on them to assess what is going. And then if we after we do the sleep diagnostic testing, I would bring them in. If we were just doing a televisit, I would bring them in and maybe map out in a little more detail what their schedule is to see if their sleep schedule is actually contributing to the shift that is leading to the fragmented sleep. Okay, because I want to take care of the things that are most common first, including the insomnia and the sleep apnea, and then address how the sleep is shifted so we can gain alternate strategies, whether we're going to use melatonin, whether we're going to use light therapy and sleep hygiene, or some other measure. There are a lot of non-pharmacologic things that we can do to help and train the sleep and consolidate it, so that there are many useful things that we can try and do to intervene.
I love this
So,
because, yeah, go ahead, Eric.
well, I'm just curious because based on the terms of fragmented versus insomnia, something very common for those in our world, in the public safety world, is that uh, 2 o'clock a.m., you're just up, can't get that mind to slow back down until it feels like a few hours later, and then you're back asleep, and all of a sudden the alarm clock wakes up. Is that considered insomnia or fragmentation, or depends on the person? And so I'm just trying to get definitions because I know that's something very common.
If it's more often than not, it's insomnia. You're going to
Mm.
have clunker nights, because remember, but insomnia is really, it's really two things. It's fragmentation of sleep in one of these three manners. Either you can't fall asleep, you continually wake up and can't stay asleep, or what you just mentioned, you wake up early in the morning and you can't go back to sleep. Okay, so that's the insomnia part of it. The second part of it is how it affects adversely your day-to-day function in terms of activities of daily living, mood, and other stressors. Okay, we have something called an insomnia severity index score that I would give to you to find out what's the most troubling thing that happens at night. Is it the fact that hit the pillow and you don't get to sleep until 2:30, or you seem to fall asleep okay, but every time 3 o'clock rolls around, it's just like somebody's tugging at your toe, and you're just not really sure why you're waking up, or are there other things in the environment, or another reason that your sleep is only consolidated for 2 to 3 hours and then you're up. Okay, and those are. And the sleep maintenance, where you have continual awakenings, and the early morning awakenings are an indicator that there may be a comorbid mood disorder or other stressor riding on. It could be something like bereavement or something else that happened that day that was traumatic. But if we keep a sleep diary, and that's the king, then I have to start screening for depression and anxiety too, because many times insomnia rides on the back of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I I noticed, and I've said it before, and I'm open with this, that I've had, diagnosed depression and anxiety, and when I knew something was wrong was because of the sleep patterning. It'd be hard to go to sleep, and then when I couldn't get out of bed, I was too tired at a regular time. So that's I was proud of myself that I noted something's going on with how I'm resting and recovering, and that's, what I brought up to my doctor. So I can definitely see. And what I think is cool that I want to highlight here is I think some folks don't realize how accessible support is for their sleep. So it's not how it used to be, where you have to go into a center now and sleep with wires all over you. You can actually do it from your home, and then you can look at the data from self-reporting data to actual data. And then I love how you said there are non-pharmaceutical options you can try first, right? Light therapy or melatonin. I mean, this is how accessible this work, these tools are. And it's just a matter of starting the process of reaching out and getting it going, which I think not I didn't realize that till we, first started talking to you. So I think that's an important note for everyone, that it is accessible and easily plugged into your life.
Yeah, there are multiple modes of therapy that can be effective, where you don't have to swallow something or put something under your tongue and wait for it to dissolve or anything like that. I'm sure you've heard of light therapy for seasonal affective disorder and other types of things in certain part of the country that people get treated for. It's part of what a field called chronobiology, but it has applications for sleep, mood, and other things. They're doing tests for PTSD and other types of potential therapies with this. Sound is another very interesting field. Harmonic frequencies, things of this nature. I sometimes using a, the Amazon has a product where there's a rotating binaural beats frequency that
Yeah.
you can buy. It's a 30 to 35 minute program, and it starts to entrain your brain with waking waves in the beta and alpha range, and then slowly dials down, and then dials your brain down to help sync up the simulations of falling asleep. At theta, you're falling asleep. In delta sleep, you're at delta waves less than 4 hertz. You're definitely asleep. So there have been a lot of more studies on that. And one of my good friends who does this kind of therapy in San Diego worked with sound waves, believe it or not, in herd behavior, herding animals for the San Diego Zoo,
Oh,
and
wow.
animal control behavior. And so she's written extensively on that, and she's just a fascinating person. And yeah, so that's how I sort of got got introduced to it in San Diego when I lived there. She was a friend of a friend of a friend, and I just started reading her articles in animal physiology journals, and she's done several studies in herd behavior for the San Diego Zoo, including
Wow.
big animals and smaller animals. And so it's really quite fascinating how this has sort of evolved and come to my attention. But now they sell things on Amazon like that to help you get to sleep.
I mean, I use binaural beats. I use sound to go to sleep and lull me to sleep. And honestly, like, I'll wake up. I don't even, and I'm hearing it. I don't even, just to go to the bathroom or something. And I barely remember. That's how fast it works on me. Speaking of animals, okay, well, two things I want to say. You started mentioning brainwaves. We talk about the same brainwaves, but we actually talk about it in terms of getting into the flow state. And what a lot of people need, we teach, is that to get into the optimal level of performance, you need to have the recovery brainwave time, right? They work, hand in hand. So, a lot of folks who have come to our training are going to be familiar with what you're saying, and we're talking about it and how to get into optimal functioning. So, that's why the conversations we're having now about sleep, think about it as that's the key to optimal performance. Those that are in public safety, they want to fight the fires at 2 a.m. They want to be chasing the bad guys at 5 a.m. You want to do that to the best of your ability. You have got to train this skill of recovery and sleep. So that's the first thing that I wanted to tie in. But my question for you is, I always look to animals and like, okay, what are we supposed to be doing here? Do animals ever experience sleep issues? Or are they just like good to go because they don't have the weird minds that we have?
They really do not. Uh, there are some animals who are in the ocean, like dolphins, who only half their brain sleeps at a time.
What?
Their half their brain is awake and the other half
Mhm.
is asleep.
Oh my
And
God, sounds like me in 10th grade math class.
it's a very sophisticated system. I mean, dolphins have echolocation and all of these other ways to detect things in their environment using sound waves. But they're because of the predator prey relationship, half of their brain is on all the time.
Oh my gosh, that is wow, that is advanced, and that's I'm sure everyone wishes that we had that technology in our heads.
They use and smaller animals with higher metabolisms use sleep to their advantage because they're sleeping 18, 18 hours a day and then foraging at night. Okay, so they're hidden from view and
Right.
sleeping and conserving energy, and then they're only up to eat at night, and then they can maximize their ability to forage and gain food, and then they go back to sleep, and they have pretty much a set schedule. Okay, now with habitat losses, this is a really interesting question that you have. I don't know that they have that their sleep is disturbed, but I know if their habitat is disturbed, the physiology of sleep at some point, when it starts to be studied more, I think they will find that there are disturbances and negative. I would the fact that might be a conversation for the herd lady from the zoo. That I mean, that lady would be the person to potentially answer that question, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
definitely
just,
some
well,
interesting overlap.
yeah, well, it's just interesting because we talk about that. We refer and look to mammals, especially in terms of when we study the stress response and how they do not experience symptoms of post-traumatic stress because they know how to regulate and recover. And so, what makes us different is that we have a thinking mind, we have an ego, we have things like that. And I can imagine that up here, the mind, the mental side, is one of the major disruptors. That's how powerful the mind is that it's disrupting our physiology and our biology. It's pretty incredible. And then this goes back to, and I want to get into this later because I know this is part of what you do is the stress, the mindset, all of that has to be, I would imagine, trained first before you go straight to the symptom.
Yeah, and all of that is susceptible to life stressors. I mean, sleep is an unconscious state, really, but it's reversible. Okay, and
Mhm.
there are if there are higher than average uh, levels of testosterone, of cortisol, of growth hormone, of prolactin, all of these things, then that's going to sort of set the table for the type of sleep cycle you're going to have,
Mhm.
and all of those hormones being elevated leads to truncal obesity. There's increase in sleep disorder breathing. I'm sure
Mhm.
you've heard of, syndromes with thyroid and with menopausal women too, especially as you age, and estrogen and then estrogen insensitivity, what we call polycystic ovarian syndrome. They
Oh,
have a lot of problems sleeping. Okay,
yeah.
so all of those things based on the physiology of those peptide and steroid hormones are going to affect that as you age, and then you add in the fact that there's sometimes people's sleep cycles are upside down until they get entrained to do that, and
Right.
that makes a bad situation worse.
So speaking of hormones, I'm assuming yes, from what you said, but do you see a difference in your patients in men versus women and what's the how their sleep is affected?
Yeah, women are affected by the hormonal changes as much, if not more, than men. As testosterone goes down, sometimes it's replaced, and then they end up getting sleep disordered breathing when there's hypogonadism or low T as things go down. But sleep apnea is associated with estrogen insensitivity, elevated cortisol, and elevated testosterone. Okay, if you have more truncal fat, and you have more estrogen resistance, like you would insulin resistance if you gain weight, this affects the sleep cycle and breathing negatively.
Bre- Okay, so we brought it up. I know Eric just unmuted because you just brought up his favorite subject is breathing and
Yeah,
how it affects sleep.
totally. Okay. Well, you can tell me about breathing and sleep. I want to hear you. I want to hear you're the expert here, but I actually do want to touch base back real quick on um, sleep affected breathing with higher rates of cortisol, higher rates of testosterone, because obviously those in public safety are going to have, just by the nature of their jobs, those are going to be two hormones that are out of homeostasis to the side that you just talked about. So um, our population is at risk based on those two factors alone. But
Mhm.
go into I'm curious. Talk about sleep breathing, the best way, how we should be breathing when we are sleeping, um, the use of technology to help correct it, things like that. Because I know our audience, I'm a nerd about this, so I've taken deep dives, but I want to hear it from you, the expert.
Okay. Well, yeah, sleep is both a passive and active process. You don't have to think about sleeping, whether you're awake or asleep, and it's passive because you breathe naturally, and it's driven by the amount of CO2 partial pressure in your blood. But you can override that at any time, right? You can start breathing faster or breathing slow, mostly breathing faster, but only for a portion of the time. Where we get into trouble with the cortisol, that actually suppresses the testosterone, and cortisol suppress respiratory drive. It also leads to increased laxity of the tissues or collapsibility associated with sleep disordered breathing, and it can affect you anywhere in the upper airway, in the nasopharynx, in the oropharynx, and even or in the hypopharynx here. So at any level, that can be affected. You need an adequate amount of thyroid hormone to maintain upper airway tone to stay awake at night, which is why people with hypothyroidism generally have sleep disordered breathing. That's a clue to that being the case. When you go to sleep, there is a respiratory center that controls your breathing based on the amount of partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And if there is a balance there, you maintain your respirations, except when you go into REM sleep. And then it's a little bit more of a free-for-all because there's dysregulation physiologically with that. Your breathing, your heart rate, and your body temperature are dysregulated in REM. It's almost like you become a cold-blooded animal for that part of your sleeping, and that's a little more involved. But there are greater sensitivities to changes in carbon dioxide and O2 that are sometimes manifest during that. So sleep disordered breathing can be positionally dependent if you sleep more on your back versus your side, but it also can be dependent on the sleep stage. Like sometimes it's worse in REM sleep versus non-REM sleep. And those are what we see epidemiologically in terms of the sleep studies. A lot of times if you're working against gravity on your back and you're in REM, a lot of times you have a lot more a higher density of sleep disordered breathing events where your airway is collapsing and you're waking up, most of which you're not aware of. But if it's long enough you can and will be, and people have gasping and choking and other physiologic changes like sweating and heart palpitations. So all of those can be a manifestation of that. So we even with the home sleep test I mentioned before, we were able to discern from stage to stage and from position to position how this might be affecting your sleep. So that makes it really exciting to look at this and make it convenient for the patient, whether they're using it at work or you're using it at home to see what's going on.
I love that, making
Yeah.
it convenient for the patient, because I think that's what stops a lot of people.
It's also interesting that you just talked a little bit about almost being in a state of dysregulation during REM sleep. And so we actually see, what we can see once in a while is that, like with folks with overactive brains or people that are kind of trending towards post-traumatic stress, they actually have almost overactive REM cycles. And so that's where they get some of their night terrors and dysregulation while they're sleeping. So I saw that one of your topics that you were talking about too is sleep changes with PTSD and traumatic brain injury and things like that. So feel like that's kind of a segue into that topic if you want to touch on that a little bit here.
Yeah, right. Usually the brainstem controls the different stages of sleep, REM and non-REM, but it's connected to multiple other areas of the brain, including the thalamus, which is the sensory relay center. But sleep and consciousness don't emanate from the big cortexes you see, in those models. You're conscious right now because your brainstem is stimulating your upper forebrain, your parietal lobes, your temporal lobes to be awake. Okay, but the dampening down of certain neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and serotonin, and then dopamine and prolactin are all at play in terms of going from stage to stage to allow these things to happen and these signals. Now, when there's an interruption in the in the brain due to traumatic brain injury, a lot of times it happens in the thalamus, which is the relay center, which goes to the forebrain and the temporal lobe, and, as well as in the cerebellum too. That's another area that has a high incidence of trauma, whether it's physical trauma from a car wreck or a fall or whatever. And then, if these parts of the brain are damaged, especially in the brainstem and the hypothalamus, the regulation of not only the sleep stages, but whether you sleep or not might be affected. Yeah, it might very well be affected. Okay, but usually REM and non-REM sleep are generated by the brainstem. But if there's damage there, that certainly could be neutered or minimalized, and you may get very little or no REM sleep in some cases. There are patients who have PTSD or trauma that are hypersomnic, and there are patients who have trauma who are insomnia, and they can't go to sleep. So it's a complex interplay depending on where the damage is, and that's why looking at sound waves and doing sensory deprivation and sensory deprivation studies are two big areas of interest to try and help with in training of brain waves in these type of patients, because the progression from the binaural beats from beta to alpha to theta to delta has been disrupted, and so we may need to find an alternate path to assist them into those deeper stages of sleep. A lot of them do not end up ever sleeping deeply as they did before the trauma, whether it was psychological or physical. So that's unfortunate, and that's an area that's in need of further investigation and study for sure.
Gosh. I have another. Eric, do you want to finish this thought? Because I wanted to ask him something else.
I'm gonna go for it.
Well, okay. So let's talk about, ideal for a second. When one is sleeping, mouth breathing or nose breathing?
You want to try and breathe through your nose, mostly because there's much less resistance of the air getting from the upper airway to the lower airway. If you breathe through your nose, it goes through the passages down the oral, down the nasal, the oral, and the hypopharynx, and goes right into the lungs. If you breathe through your mouth, it has to go through your lips, your gums, your teeth, your uvula, your tonsils if you have them, and your tongue. Okay, so there's a much higher amount of resistance. The other thing that's advantageous to breathe through your nose is the air is warmed much more readily, and it's less irritating to the upper airway. Okay,
Okay.
so you want to try, and especially if you're using therapy with PAP to get them to breathe through their nose, it's not always 100%, but
Hmm.
it's there's much less resistance through that path, and that's why we make that recommendation.
Okay. Now, how much is the ideal sleep for an adult 30s, 40s, 50s?
7 hours.
7 hours.
If
Okay.
it's over five, or if it's over eight or under five, the latest studies show that the mortality and morbidity goes up. I would try and shoot. If everybody's saying 7 hours is the ideal, if you can get between 6.5 and 7 hours most nights, I think you're doing pretty well. But
And
just try and avoid less than five and more than eight.
Mhm.
and when we first met, that was the number that really kind of like opened my eyes and opened my mind, quite frankly. And it actually gives me some hope for being able to start new routine and that kind of stuff, waking up a little earlier because I'm still will be healthily in that window, uh, even by waking up a little bit earlier because of better nighttime routines. Like if we're going to bed at 9 o'clock, 7 hours later ish, like that's three, that's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So it's really not too far off from a new routine that I'm going to try to establish here in short order.
I think
But
that's a healthy one for an adult male or female. That's fine.
Yeah.
but then what would be the recommendation of like, so that's actual sleep. So when would one need to get in bed, and like what's the hope ideally of I get in bed, I shut my eyes, I'm asleep. The time, I guess.
I would like to see people after their head hits the pillow be going to sleep at around 30 minutes.
30 minutes before being
We
asleep.
could
Okay.
stretch it to 30 to 45. I think that's reasonable. If it goes any longer than that, then there are other stressors that might come in about, oh, why am I not falling asleep,
Right. Then you start getting into that pattern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
I found
right.
when I was wearing an Oura ring pretty consistently and watching like sleep latency and from time of down to sleep, I was probably targeting in that probably 20 to 30 minute range. And so pretty well on track for that. And so when you talk about like 7 hours of sleep, you're really only adding 30 minutes before. So
Yeah,
if you're in bed 9 o'clock, you're waking up at 5 o'clock, out of
yeah.
bed at 5 o'clock, that's still hitting a 7 hour window pretty accurately.
Yeah, I want you to have establish a routine, but I don't want you to spend too much time in bed because then that can end up being counterproductive.
Mm.
So yeah, so there are things that you can do to optimize your chance of doing that. Your last meal should be at least 3 hours before you lie down to go to bed. I would start lowering the light around 5 o'clock or near dinner time. You know, no exercise before bed, obviously, and no, you can have the wine, but don't drink alcohol before bed. Don't drink a whole lot of water. Limit your water before bed, and then also limit any light. Have a moratorium on any light from a screen, whether it's a tablet, a television, or a phone, at least an hour to an hour and 20 minutes before bed. Okay,
Mm.
all those things that you do will phase delay your sleep and delay the onset and even fragment your sleep later on. Okay.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, that
that ruins
and
our
I'm just
life.
thinking about no, I'm just thinking like you just hit on something that's so critical as far as like the reality of living in a digital world
Yeah.
where people keep these black boxes literally attached to them at 24/7 365 and just how much that device alone is screwing up our sleep. And even just from to your point, looking at it within an hour to an hour and a half, like think about that folks. So that means if you're trying to go to sleep 9 or 9:30, that thing's got to be in a cage starting at about 8 p.m.
I'm saying it would be in your best interest
No, I
to
know, I know,
have
I
a
know. Yes,
moratorium
yes,
on
yes.
this. If you are using it for your binaural beats and there's no light coming out of it, that's
Yes,
totally
no.
fine. If you have a piece of 17th or 18th century music that you want to use as part of your lullaby, I won't begrudge you that, or even white noise if that helps entrain or relax you. I mean, everybody has their own has their own system in their own way. I'm just saying, these are recommendations where you can shift the factors in your favor that you're
Right.
going to have set yourself up for a good night's sleep instead of well, for lack of a better term, shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Uh, and another one you always hear is, or at least thought I heard, colder bedroom, like a little bit cooler room.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously as
Whoever
dark
the
as
cold,
possible.
who's ever the coldest wins. Yeah. Who
Yeah,
Yeah.
gets to set the
Eric.
temperature. Yeah.
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 Uh,
If you need it warmer, you can
Oh no,
always
I need it
put it.
warmer. So yeah, but
Yeah,
I
so
don't win, Eric. I never win.
you can put on a hoodie and
Yes. Yeah.
to accommodate. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's
so
always better. And the mouth dryness and everything will be a bit less. I think you'll gain an advantage there if you keep it on the cooler side. So
I
most
know.
people
no,
up there around 66, 67.
Yeah, that's what,
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe you can get him up a degree or a degree and a half. You look like you're pretty persuasive.
um,
Negotiate.
yeah, and so she went back to mouth breathing versus nasal breathing. This is not a doctor's recommendation at all, but I'll be honest, I had to retrain myself to sleep with my mouth shut because I slept with my mouth open, but I was very conscious of it, very aware of it, did some of the more quote unquote extreme things, but have retrained my body to sleep with my mouth shut. And honestly, it does help. I really have found. Not that I'm giving people guidance, but and just working towards nose breathing.
If you do, believe it or not, if you keep your mouth open, your tongue has a more of a proclivity to slide back than if it's open, than if it's closed, where it will stay closer to the back of your upper and lower teeth and gums. And it has been remarkable, believe it or not. One of the other therapies that we do, the implantable device for Inspire, there were several patients who were having trouble controlling the amount of breakthrough events on it, and after we added a chin strap, without using a PAP device, and we kept their mouth closed, and we optimized the pressure. Their breakthrough events went down to less than 5. It was really quite astonishing, and
Yeah.
we're looking at the hypoglossus, which is the main muscle of the tongue, and it's part of the upper palate. That's the one that gets stimulated when the device is active during the night, but it stays more anterior and has less of a tendency to you want, when you stimulate the tongue with this device, you want it to protrude forward to open the airway and not uh, move laterally or posteriorly or retract. Okay, and so it was just uncanny how the simple act of closing your mouth led to that working so much better. They were measuring the diameters. I just got back from Vegas and a conference, and they just showed pictures of what after they used devices to keep the mouth closed, how much wider the upper airway was just by doing that simple thing. And
Wow.
they were going to write a paper on it.
Yeah,
I
and
think
They were
that's why
presenting the data. So
yeah, and
I'm a
that's
true believer, and you're right. And the fact that you're feeling that way, there's actually scientific basis for it now. So I'm not
yes.
surprised that that's helped you tremendously.
No, and that's why I get become such a stickler on this with people and even like our little girl and stuff is I really want to help people realize like changing how you breathe can have so many can the tertiary benefits are just profound, including arguably better sleep. And so it's not the expensive stuff sometimes, folks. Like find ways to just change. And this is why Olivia's like, this is where I get passionate. It's like if you can find ways to change how you're breathing, you can have a profound impact on multiple areas of your life.
Yeah. Even with an implantable device that's stimulating you while you're asleep that you're not supposed to feel, if
Right.
you just close your mouth,
Yes.
it improves the efficiency and the quality of it like astronomically. Everybody's like jaw dropped when they showed this data. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's a great thing that you found.
I think I need to be your patient. I think I need some adjustments in my life. So we'll get to my personal my personal medical stuff later. But anyway, two more the ideal questions. One is there an ideal position to sleep in?
I think if you have normal sleep versus pathologic sleep disorder breathing, or
Um,
are you
I,
wanting to
I
make a
guess if you
distinction
have,
there?
yeah, if you have normal sleep and trying to just sleep your best, you know,
I think you should sleep the way that you're comfortable. I
okay.
would say that if there's a suspicion that there might be a degree of sleep disorder breathing, having your head and neck in the same plane as your body, no matter what position you're sleeping in, would probably be
Yeah.
best. Like if
Okay.
you're on your back, don't turn your head to the side. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Or if you're on your side, don't turn your head to look at the ceiling. Stay in the same plane,
Yeah.
extending up from your thorax to your head, and
Okay.
that will not narrow your airway.
Okay. And is there an ideal way to wake up?
Um, if you have kids or you don't have kids.
Um, let's say you don't. Let's say the most ideal situation possible where they're not jumping on your face.
Well, if you have kids that have four legs, you may get it from all sides. But I want people to have a routine and an expectation that they're going to be waking up within 15 minutes of when their alarm goes off. So
Okay.
and we're going to optimizing our sleep environment and doing everything we can to get you there throughout the night. You're going to be shifting around and for pressure points depending on your mattress, bed partner, other things that are going on in the room. And so yeah, that's I think that having that have sleeping about 85% of the time or more, should be the goal. Okay,
Okay.
if you have an app that can measure that, that should be our goal. Your
So
efficiency should be about 85% or more,
I
most
wanted
nights.
to
And if it's
invent,
above 90, beautiful.
yeah. Yeah. I
If
wanted
it's
to
at 83 or 84 or 82, that's okay.
but not okay. I have to get an Aura ring then. But I wanted to invent something, and maybe you can tell me this has already been invented, but this is what I wanted to invent. An alarm clock that was attached, saw my sleep stuff happening, my cycles. And let's say I'm like 8:30-ish, okay? And it woke me up at the end of my sleep cycle. So maybe it's 8:15, maybe it's 8:45, but I hate an alarm abruptly waking me up where, like I want to be woken up when my hormones are naturally taking me out of a sleep cycle. And so I want to invent an alarm that will wake me up around the time I want to wake up, but in conjunction with my sleep cycle. Is this $1 million idea?
Um, you need 4 to 5 sleep cycles for a healthy restorative sleep, with each one getting uh, REM shorter and longer and then the longest REMs are like the last 2 cycles. So I think if we were able to be able to have a sensor for that. I think every woman in America would want one of those.
No, it's $1 million idea. Okay, we cannot air this episode until I have patented my idea.
I think you should edit that part out yet, but that's
Okay.
just me. I think we should keep that a little bit on the mum side until yeah, maybe that's a really good idea. But
Okay,
I
we're
think
editing it out.
but the last two sleep cycles are all sleep cycles are between usually 90 and 120 minutes, but the two longest REMs are in the last two. So if you can get the benefit of the two longest REM cycles uninterrupted, no matter how long the total sleep cycle is, yeah, yeah, that would be an interesting thing to study.
Yeah, I know. I've been craving that
That's a really compelling thought.
because
Yeah,
for
and
me,
it's highly
the waking up part is a little bit more a thing than the going to sleep part and how it affects my day.
yeah, not to dive into this too much, but having again watched the sleep cycles, and I know Aura Ring is not necessarily the best sleep cycle monitor, but it's easy because it just slides on and off your finger. Um, but the sleep cycle tracking on that is pretty darn good, actually. I feel like, and to the $1 million idea, if you could tap into that data and then just build an app around it, like to those nerds out, or excuse me, not nerds, to those really smart men and women in Silicon Valley. Here, there you go.
Yeah, if you could get a patent to work on ex to do a time course where and extend the REM sleep in the last two cycles, that that that's a very interesting idea.
Yeah.
Very interesting idea.
Well, that's gonna go into maybe what we'll be talking about in a minute. But before we get into this last portion I wanted to talk to you about, there's something that you said that I really appreciate. And I want to talk to you about the 5 R's that you mentioned. We have the 3 P's with YFFR, so this is the 5 R's. But what I love that you said about it is it's building these skills to endure hardship. And the reason I love that is, we teach, it's yoga for first responders, and everyone thinks, oh, yoga, it's to have more of a stress-free life. No, I can't take the stresses away. Okay. Your boss is going to be terrible. You're going to get into fights with your spouse. We don't train people to take the stress away, but we train people on how to be able to have the resilience toward that, inevitable stress. So when you say here to endure hardship, life is going to give you hardship. So are you going to have the grit and the robustness to be able to move through that in a healthy way? So can
Yeah,
you expound a little bit more on the 5 R's and what they are?
yeah. All right. Well, yeah, they're from the ones that I sort of came into contact with, or that were developed by someone from the Mayo Clinic, who I really have a lot of respect for in terms of doing ancillary things with sleep. But there are things that are automatic before we get into that you can steward. You can steward your body, your heart, and your mind, and you can have influence over the parasympathetic nervous system, which that part of the nervous system is what allows you to relax. Okay. And biofeedback programs have been taking advantage of that for years. Okay. So if you can teach them that there is something that they can steward and make the something that seems unregulatable regulatable, like muscle tension and skin temperature, that can be, but that's all part of the physiologic process. You have to know that you're going to have a curveball. So the first R is rebound. Okay, you're going to have things that you're not going to expect. So you have to rebound your thinking and adjust your thinking to to take as a first step in terms of emotionally allowing yourself to feel something, to experience it, and say, I'm experiencing this. It's a curveball, but I need to figure out a way to get back some emotional stability so I can begin to deal with it. Okay. And then the second R is reflective. My favorite, one of my favorite sayings in reflective moments when I talk to people about things. This is when you really learn lessons in life and learn about yourself through self-reflection and self-awareness. And I think it helps. There's always fear, about the unknown and when you're doing this rebound, but this kind of distills it and makes the confusion a little clearer, and so you can be ready to have manageable thoughts, have adult thoughts, and be ready to tackle this and gain a perspective on things. Okay, this is how you learn when you reflect on things. That's my favorite part of this. And then the third R is reinforcement, and the other word that goes along with is discipline. Mike Tyson used to say, discipline is having something that you hate to do and doing it every day like you love it. That's discipline. Okay.
Yeah.
He hated his trainer says you got talent, but you're a tomato can kid. You don't want it. You don't have any discipline. And then Mike said, "Oh man, yeah, I cried when he said that to me." And so, and it just instills and reinforces that being consistent and implementing solutions is going to get you from where you are to where you need to be. Okay. And then once you're doing that and you have the discipline and reinforcement, you have to reimagine. And you know what that means. A light is going to open up at the end of the tunnel. And you have to see yourself getting to that point by doing the first three. You can see it out there in the distance. You're not there yet, but you have to reimagine yourself being there and getting there. Okay. And then the last one, I'm kind of blanking. And then reimagining and getting to that distant goal. And then the other one is your resolve to get there. This is the path you're going to stay. Your resolve. This is where you need to go. You've imagined where it is. That's not to say that there aren't going to be bumps along the road. Okay. If you're doing a therapy to treat a disease like a blood disease, there's going to be ups and downs with that, and you need to have resolve to say there's going to be good days, but there's going to be bad days. And that's why I need resolve, because I have to get to this other, I'm resolved to get there. And that's what makes the healing process complete. You have resolve and you get there.
I think those 5 lessons, those 5 R's are just an amazing, pathway in all areas of life. And I think it's something that we at YFFR have loosely found ourselves in our protocol. We definitely use that word discipline. We use robustness. We talk about moving through hardships in a way that actually makes you stronger because of it. We talk about cognitive reappraisal of situations, so reimagining. So this is so much resonates. There's another R, resonates with us. And I'm going to be using this. Like, I want to write them on a piece of paper in front of me, because I think that's
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
critical.
they're like bulletin board things, and you are right about its translatability to things. I mean, these are beyond challenging times with that we live in, and so we need to have a plan, and
Yeah.
we need to be, we need to accept and reflect on things and have to be able to rebound, because nobody's life is smooth sailing all the time. So, yeah,
No.
having that, and then having the ability to reflect, and then have the discipline to get to the resolve part is how it's happening. And
Yeah.
you can, and it's just a simple process, and you just have to take the time to do it. Not
And
to say
the
that at times when it's really tough, you won't. That's why you have to have good, close relationships to help get you through this sometimes too.
But I think that takes you back to the first one of rebound. Life is going to be hard. You are going to, didn't Mike Tyson say this too, or who said this? You know, you have a plan until you get punched in the face. You know, it's like you do your rebound is number one because you are going to be knocked off your center. That's just whether it's a simple cold when you are supposed to go present and you're sick, you know, that knocks you off your center, or something more traumatic, but it's gonna, you know, it's guaranteed. And if you have, we always say, if you have proactively trained your resilience, then you can go through these 5 R's. You know, you've already trained for it. And I think that kind of goes back to sleep too. If you have created a routine, if you know what gives you good sleep, then you have a baby, you get off, not you get knocked off your center, then you can find your way back again, I would hope, at some point. Speaking of Mike Tyson, I need to tell you a quick story if you like Mike Tyson. Um,
As long as you don't make me write about it, my penmanship is just not very good anymore.
he's a fan, folks. He's a
Yeah.
fan. Okay. So where I am right now is our headquarters for YFFR. We have our filming space right over there. Obviously, this is my office. Eric's office is there. And when we moved in, we took over the lease of someone. It was a photographer. And this guy left kind of in a hurry and left a lot of stuff here, left like the things you pull down, the backdrop stuff. And we were going through everything and we pulled out a big photo of Mike Tyson, that this photographer was his photographer and took that picture. And
Him in the ring training. What? How did you?
he's smoking a cigarette out looking outside of looking out a balcony. But I'll show it. We'll show it to you. We'll meet up and
Oh,
we'll show it to you. But it's this guy's
a
picture.
candid picture. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it was it
an
was a
off-beat
pretty
picture.
amazing find. So, yeah, anyway, always comes back to Mike Tyson. That's gonna be the name of this
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, I hope I get to meet him one day. Yeah, he would be. I mean, he would be a good guy to have lunch with.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
I bet he has some stories to tell.
So I want to make sure we touch on this initiative, and maybe I hope I'm saying it correctly when I say it's an initiative. It's at its beginning stages, but it's really focusing on improving women's sleep health. And expand a little bit more on that because that's kind of what got us all you know, talking in the first place. I want to be the first person who uses this, but we're really also interested in getting this initiative out to our population that we serve. So tell me a little bit more about the goals there.
Well, the goals are women go through a much broader and extensive physiologic change from when they grow up to their midlife years and then postmenopausally. Their symptoms for certain condition, one of the more common conditions like insomnia, sleep apnea, and restless legs may differ from that of men, and maybe a little more subtle. The other kind of mysterious and frightening thing at the same time is in about 29 to 33% of the cases for sleep apnea in midlife and menopause. Do you know what the primary presenting symptom is?
No.
Nothing. They have no symptoms.
Oh, that's really
Okay.
scary.
So we're really concerned about women's heart health, and with sleep being a pillar, now with the one of the pillars for AHA, we're really trying to get into and about women to talk about uh, their sleep, get evaluated if they think something's wrong, and talk in greater detail about why maintaining good sleep is good for their heart health, their brain health, and their overall health.
Mm. So how do you see this? what does it look like logistically? Is it a program or how do you see this rolling out to folks?
We are looking into doing coaching and information. The website's going to be sleepsolutionsforher.com, and it is in the works in the next few weeks here, 5 at the most. But we're rapidly getting our ducks in a row to bring this out, and we're going to talk about women's health issues with regard to sleep, how they interact with other issues that they may not think are connected, like endocrine problems and menopause and even pain. And also talk about what the best approach is to try and screen these patients as effectively as we can. So we're capturing as many patients as we can, because in the primary care doctor's office, in more instances than not, if the patient is not talking about sleep, then it's never brought up by the physician, and we're trying to, change the way that these things are approached, and this will be a way to do that.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. And I want to take advantage of it myself. And we really we want our audience and our population to be able to have access to what you're rolling out. And so I want everyone to keep their eyes open, because I would love to do a Q&A with our audience over social media with you. We want to start offering it on our platform to connect to your platform. There's so many things in the works here, because it is so critically important. And as we've already discovered, there's so much parallel with the conversations we have when we're doing our training that you're going to be having, that it just makes sense that this is another tool that all our folks are using to our skill that we're teaching at YFFR is how to process stress, build resilience, and enhance performance. And being able to recover and own your own physiology and sleep, I think, is a critical component to that.
It absolutely is, and with the fact, like we said before, that women are underdiagnosed with almost a third of them having no symptoms. This should be compelling for a compelling subject to talk about for women in relation to their sleep and their other health issues. So yeah, it's a great thing to be informing people about, because we can definitely make a positive and lasting impact on their life.
And it's also important because the females in public safety, a lot of the differences between males and females are ignored. And I'll give you an example. When I went through a fire academy, and I had to have another female firefighter who was not an instructor teach me how to do some of the physical skills differently because of where my weight is, in my hips and stuff, my center. And that's not how it's taught. It's taught for a man's body. So same thing. It's just a lot of the women's concerns are not brought up in public safety, let alone all the other things that, with women in public safety. And so to be able to give this to women who are not only doing this incredible job, but also dealing with all of these other things that their male counterparts are not dealing with, I think is going to be super, super cool to be able to give them access to.
It will give, if at the very least, it'll give them food for thought, and spring them into asking more questions about this, or getting in front of a sleep professional, or if their primary doctor doesn't feel compelled enough to order a sleep test. And yeah, so all roads leading to more information about their sleep health is where we're leading.
Well, Dr. Schumann, this has been awesome. And It's 9 o'clock, which means it's my bedtime. I have to get in bed so that I can be asleep by 9:30. Okay. That's your prescription. So,
It is, and start lowering those lights in the house straight
yeah.
away.
No, this has really been important, and you've actually truly inspired me to get on top of this, and I want to, start taking advantage of the say it one more time. I want to say sleep study for her, but it's not sleep sources. Say it one more time for me.
Sleepsolutionsforher.com.
Sleepsolutionsforher.com. Obviously, we're going to have everything linked in our show notes. And if anyone, if someone wants to ignore the show notes and just message us directly of how to get in touch with you, we will get everyone in touch with you, but we will have your contact stuff in the show notes.
Well, it went well enough that we can do a forum to answer questions, so that seems like an easy transition for sure.
I think so. Let's have that be the next step. Well, this is awesome. And thanks again. And I feel even worse now keeping you up later, because we had to do it after our daughter went to sleep. And so now I'm even more conscious of that. So thank you for doing that.
Okay. I hope I didn't disturb your children.
No, no, we're disturbing you. That's what we were worried about. We're pulling you back into toddler life. So you get to go back now to having grown children life. But thank you so much. I appreciate your time and all your knowledge you shared with us.
Okay, that's great. I had a good time, and let's do it again when we can.
Sounds good.
Hey, before we go, I want to remind you that training your mental and physical health is incredibly important, especially for those working in high-stress jobs like first responders.
And if you're interested in learning more about yoga for first responders, visit yogaforfirstresponders.org for our on-demand training app, online course platform, in-person training, and more.
Like this podcast, subscribe, and give us a great review. We are so happy to have you part of the YFFR mission.